What's up, guys? It's been a huge month for Bitcoin and the markets, and we've got a lot to cover. I've actually been getting blown up with messages that are basically like, win 100K. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about my profit targets now that we have broken to a new all-time high, talk about what the hell's going on and what I'm expecting next. If you're new here, I'm Chris Dunn. I'm known as the world's first Bitcoin trading and investing educator. Now going on 11 years of doing this. Man, I'm getting old. So anyway, we're going to do a one-shot take here and just get through a ton of stuff because I'm super busy. But let's jump into it and talk about what's happening. Now, I just did an interview with Cointelegraph talking about what the Trump victory means for Bitcoin and crypto in general. And a couple of things that I pointed out was that Trump's victory is a narrative that's driving price action to all-time highs. So they asked me, like, is Bitcoin at new all-time highs because of Trump? And I'm like, well, that's the narrative. And really what is going to drive this beyond is the fact that we actually hit new all-time highs. That's what is going to bring retail back. And what I'll do is I'll pull up Google Trends here. And one thing that I said earlier in the year was nobody was paying attention to Bitcoin during the entire bear market and over the past 2 years since we bottomed out with the FTX low. And actually, it's 2 years to the day today that FTX actually imploded. And guess what? That was the low in price action. So we've now been in a bull market for almost 2 years now. And what was interesting is during this whole time period from 22, especially during this most recent bull market, if we just zoom in here over the last month, you can see nobody's been paying attention. No, like your average normie just hasn't been watching Bitcoin. They thought it was dead after the FTX implosion and hearing all the, the negativity in the news about the SEC. And another thing that I said was, people love a good reason to hop on a bandwagon, and a new all-time high is a very compelling reason. And we also talked about that, now that the anti-crypto army has been crushed, I do expect that we're going to see some kind of altcoin season. And actually, over the last year, I've been telling people in our wealth building community that, this is Bitcoin season. Yes, alts have been going up, but it's actually a very small percentage that have actually been outperforming Bitcoin. And we've had some meme coins that have done really well, which has been fun, but a lot of the legacy stuff and the layer ones and just all the other narratives have been really underperforming. And I think with Bitcoin breaking to a new all-time high, plus the SEC basically being stripped down to the bare metal again, and with what looks to be, with the Trump victory, Gary Gensler getting fired. And what I'll do in the description, I'll actually link up to a live that was on X last night with a former regulator talking about how the SEC is basically not going to really go after crypto anymore. Trump is the one steering the ship. And the message now is, hey, guess what? The US is crypto friendly. And this, I think, is a huge thing for the US. And I actually was writing yesterday on X what I call the ultimate bull case for Bitcoin, because one of the big narratives now is that the US might be stockpiling Bitcoin over the next few years. They're going to call it the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and they could be buying around 1 million Bitcoin, or somewhere around 5% of the supply. And in my mind, the massive bull case for Bitcoin starts with that. And what this looks like is something kind of like a flash flood. If you guys know what a flash flood looks like, it starts slow, like a little stream, and then all of a sudden it's like this rushing river that came out of nowhere. And if you happen to be hiking in a valley where a flash flood happens, it could overtake you in a matter of seconds. And so I think that is potentially what could happen if the US starts to adopt Bitcoin and build this strategic Bitcoin reserve. It starts with the first drip when the US says, hey guys, guess what? We've started this, we're stockpiling. And what that says is that Bitcoin is now serious business and it's on the level of gold. And then number two is you get the FOMO effect. You know, when other governments and smaller economies start seeing this, they start to feel the FOMO hard, and we're like, oh shit, we don't want to miss out on this, right? So what happens is it starts to gain momentum and other streams of dollars start chasing the finite supply of Bitcoin. And then step three is we get a capital surge. As more countries dive in, the limited supply triggers like this reflexive buying begets more buying begets more buying loop, right? Because there's a finite supply, which everybody knows about. There's no surprise there. The unknown is the demand side of the equation, right? And the first bubbles that we saw a decade ago were mostly driven by degenerates like us and, you know, crypto cypherpunks and just a small group of, you know, traders. But the participant pool has become more diverse in recent years. And now we have, you know, spot Bitcoin ETFs, we have all these derivatives. And if I think the ultimate bull case is if governments like the US and other large economies, if they start to stockpile, that literally is the biggest capital flow that you could possibly see. And so the step four is like, finally, it ends up as a massive global impact. And this flash flood of capital completely reshapes the world. And, you know, there's some people that are saying that the US is not going to go through with the BST because it is in direct conflict with government interests, like the US dollar's global dominance, and that it would destabilize the dollar and treasury yields. I don't know if I believe that quite yet. You know, obviously there's a lot of variables there, but Senator Loomis is the one pushing for the million Bitcoin acquisition. And I think that now that, you know, Trump is in office, I think that we are going to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve, just like Senator Cynthia Loomis says. So I'm more bullish on that. I think the odds are higher now with a decisive red wave with the Senate and what's looking to be the House, and with Trump in office. And again, this isn't my political belief. I'm not right or left. You know, I look at these things from the dead center as an investor. Like, how is this going to impact markets, and what are the risks, and what are the opportunities? Okay, so that again is one of the biggest reasons I think to be bullish. But if you're in doubt, you know, I would say when in doubt, look at price action. You know, price action is absolutely confirming that we are now in what looks to be the second half of the bull market phase. Okay, so one thing that we know by the 4-year halving cycle is that the halving, when the block rewards get cut in half, that is typically around halfway through the market cycle. And so you can see right now, we are just coming out of the blue dots, which is right after the last halving, into the green. And if you look at the prior 3 market cycles, that's when the second half of the bull market starts. Now, that is either a crowded trade or a self-fulfilling prophecy. Last market cycle, everybody had the laser eyes and was saying, you know, 100K, 100K. And that became a crowded trade. And then we had the FTX weird stuff, which kind of threw things off. So I'm a little suspicious every time everybody gets euphoric and we go from extreme fear to greed. The markets like to shake weak hands out. But if you look at the narrative, if you look at the price action, everything is lining up to continue this bullish move that we've been on. So let's just do some TA and talk about where we are and where I think we're headed, and also what's happened. So like I mentioned, it is 2 years to the day at the time of me recording this video that FTX imploded. Okay. And we had the washout. And that, in hindsight, was the low of the bear market. Isn't that funny how it works? We'll talk about some other panics here in a second, but usually where you have this extreme volume and extreme panic, that can be capitulation. So what happened just a couple months after that is we shifted from this 2022 bear market into bull market price structure, where we got above all three of our moving averages, the 50 period, the 100 period, and the 200 period. And then we started making higher highs and higher lows. That is technically when the bull market started. That's not my opinion. That's according to TA. Then, if you guys remember, in March of last year, we had the regional banking crisis. Everybody thought the US banking system was imploding and that, we were going to have the Great Depression. And for some reason, people sold their Bitcoin on that narrative. And we had a pretty fast crash in just a week of about 20%. After we hit 25K, we were down back around 20K very quickly. And that, to me, was a great buying opportunity. So we bought right here at 20K. It was one of my best dip buys ever. And then fast forwarding, we had a extended period of consolidation with some fake out breakouts, some bear traps. And then we had continuation and buying in anticipation of the spot ETFs, which when they launched was a catalyst for the markets to have one of the strongest runs in Bitcoin's history, right? It went up like 90% from this breakout in just a few months. And that was unprecedented, and it got overbought in the short term. I was saying, like, what would actually be healthy is consolidation. And boy, did we get consolidation. 8 months of it, from this prior pivot high around 73 to this week's all-time high breakout around 230 something days, or like 8 months. One hell of a consolidation. And guess what? Smack dab in the middle of that, we had another crisis, the Japan trade that unwound, and both stocks and Bitcoin panicked at the same time. Are you seeing a theme here? Usually when people freak out and price action panics, not only should you not go along with the herd, but it's actually profitable to do the opposite that the herd does. Fast forwarding, we started to make higher lows and higher highs. And it was right here that I started to tell our community that I was really getting bullish again and started building back into my long, because the moving averages were now holding a support. And we had this big rounding pattern. Like, you can call it a cup and handle, whatever. It was just really looking bullish into the election. And then a couple weeks ago, Travis, aka Stock Geek, and I did a live stream as Bitcoin was attempting to break a new all-time high. And it did so on several other fiat charts, like against the euro, the Canadian dollar, the Aussie dollar, right? But it wasn't quite yet ready on the US dollar. It wanted to wait for the election. And then it was just so ironic and beautiful timing. As it was looking like on election day, as it was looking like Trump was going to be victorious, the market said, okay, we're ready. We're going. Trump's the Bitcoin friendly candidate. And if he's going to win, and he made all of these promises, what does that look like? And I actually posted in our Discord channel what all of those promises were. And I'll just read them to you. What are the reasons that the markets really liked Trump as a candidate? And again, this isn't my opinion. I don't lean one way or the other. This isn't me telling you my political bias. It's talking about how the market reacted to a candidate. And, Trump was the only candidate that blatantly came out and said that he's going to make the US a leader in the crypto space and put a stop to Choke Point 2.0 or Elizabeth Warren's anti-crypto army, which was the dumbest thing for a politician to do. Like, who really cared about that? Who wanted to be anti-crypto? He wanted to form a crypto advisory council. He's going to fire Gary Gensler, who has become this nemesis in the crypto space, which also I think was silly. Trump's against central bank digital currencies, right? Which is very, very good for the US not to go that path. He wanted to protect Bitcoin mining rights. And I think one of the most important things is commuting Ross Ulbricht's sentence. You know, he's been in prison for over a decade. If you don't know the story, go watch the movie. He got framed by some corrupt FBI agents that ended up, I believe it was the same agents. They went to prison for like stealing Bitcoin anyway. It was just a shit show. So he served a lot of time. He went to prison and was only convicted for basically starting and managing the Silk Road. So no matter what your opinions on that are, I just think it's time for him to get out. So I think that's something that hopefully he sticks to. And he said he was going to do it on day one. And the betting markets are showing, I think, just an 80 or 85% probability of that, which to me seems like free money, but we'll see. Okay, so where can Bitcoin go? Well, one thing I like to do is actually zoom out and look at the largest time frames, right? So in the top left, I've got the yearly chart, so 12-month chart. Every candle is a full year. And one thing that Bitcoin likes to do is trade from major area to major area. Then if we zoom down on the monthly chart, you can clearly see what I've been talking about all year, which is how the 60K zone went from resistance to support, and now we're starting to get a push through. Now, to find upside targets right now, I think that the monthly is where it's most clear. And there's a few ways that you can do this, right? You can do fundamental things. So you can look at like the market cap of BTC into the future, like at 100K, what would that look like? What I like to do is technicals. So I like to use Fibonacci extensions and measured moves, okay? And new all-time highs rather can be kind of challenging because you're in uncharted territory. You don't really know where price can go. But one thing that I like to do is look at prior ranges. So we can see that, you know, this 70K on the upper end and then 15K on the lower end. If you just measure this entire range and then stack it on top, this a lot of times can be kind of a clear area of like a measured move. But what I like to do is look for confluence. And another thing that we can do is look at Fib extensions, Fibonacci extensions, where you look at a run minus a retracement and then look at that into the future. So if we do that run minus this retracement, look where that gets us. Pretty close to 100K for that first 100% extension. Right. And then you can have future profit targets. So what I think will happen is we'll probably get some selling pressure here around 80K. And then if bulls are able to maintain control, we've got a lot of what I call open air to 100K. That's kind of a magnet price, right? Now, anything could happen. We could have like a situation like this where there's a bull trap and then we get signs that the bull market is over. But as long as we're seeing positive ETF flows and positive price action, meaning bulls are in control, I'm going to go ahead and stick with this thesis. And another thing that I want to mention while we're looking at charts is altcoins. So one thing that we know is alts have dramatically underperformed Bitcoin so far this year. If we just look at the yearly gains for 2024, alts are only up about 30% on average. Now, yes, there's outliers. We have memes and stuff that have done really well, but the bigger picture is that alts have just underperformed. So what I expect to happen is as Bitcoin continues its trek through all-time highs, and when there's pullbacks in the price of Bitcoin, some of that capital will trickle down into alts. This is something that I started talking about back in 2014 and 15 when we had the first alts that were even tradable, right? And when I identified that Bitcoin actually traded in market cycles, this is one of the major components that as capital comes into Bitcoin, when people take profit, they don't just sell for fiat. Some of that capital will go into alts. So that's really one thing that I'm excited about and looking forward to is to get more movement in alts. You know, I've had a couple of good plays this year, Solana being one of the biggest ones. We were buying down here in the 50s, took profit on the way up. Looks like we actually might have some trade setups going into the future. So I'm sending a lot of watch lists to the community, a lot of trade alerts, and I'm just really in hunting mode right now. And I hope you are too. Moving on, guys. One thing that I talked about in my last video was the $1 million challenge. So I took a $1 million stock portfolio and about $1 million worth of Bitcoin. And I created a starting point where they were both roughly the same portfolio size, a little over $1 million. And I'll link this up. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out, because I explain what the portfolios are, how they're going to work, what the goals are, and all that stuff. But just to give you an update, over the past month, the Bitcoin portfolio over the past month is up about 9% or 110,000. Over the past, that was week. Week, it was up 9%, 110,000. Month, it's up over 25% or 284,000. So pretty damn good gains, right? And that, again, is just because we had this move. So I expect to see some drawdowns in this portfolio in the future, but over the past week and month, some really nice gains in the Bitcoin portfolio. On the stock side, we've had some gains, but not nearly as impressive. Over the past month, it is up a blended 6%. And over the past week, it's up about 5%. So about 70 something thousand over the past month. So, Bitcoin is outperforming. But the goal of these two portfolios is to see which one can perform the best over the next few years, see which one maybe can get to 10 million with the best risk-adjusted returns. So again, go watch that prior video if you haven't seen that. What else? So a couple of things that I just wanted to leave you guys with is talking about the other capital flow that is causing this big move in Bitcoin's price, which is the spot ETFs. This week, we saw the largest inflow since the launch of the ETFs. And what I like to do is actually throw a moving average on this so you can kind of see the average flow of capital. The first month that the ETFs launched, there was hundreds of millions of dollars coming in. And then over the last half a year, it's been up, down, up, down, up, down, with price. Through this consolidation choppiness, you had smart people that were accumulating Bitcoin. You had other people that were trading too much and getting chopped out. Hence my saying, can you see this? Trade less, profit more. I just made these shirts. So that's fun. I don't know why I made merch. I just like the saying. But anyway, so flows coming back in. And we've seen an increase in average flows into those all-time highs. So that's another thing that I think is going to drive that, along with the stock to flow narrative, the US friendly crypto sphere now. And look, I'll be honest, guys, over the last 4 years, I think it's just a damn shame that the Democrats took this anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto stance. Bitcoin is for everybody. Right? Crypto is innovative. Yes, there are a shit ton of scams and we need to get rid of those. And I'm going to start being more vocal about the stuff that I think are blatant scams, because I'm seeing just, again, a lot of people following cults, getting led to slaughter. And there's no reason to lose money right now. There's no reason to hang on to these just dying cults, and it blows my mind whenever I see people following cults like GME, right? How many hundreds of thousands of people were on Roaring Kitty's live stream when all he did was a fucking pump and dump? Are you serious? Or Hex or SafeMoon or Bed Bath & Beyond, the people that literally rode the stock to zero. There are cult assets, meaning assets that have a cult following, things like Palantir, Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, Solana, NVIDIA. Having an asset that has a cult following isn't a bad thing, but follow the right ones. Follow the stocks that are killing it, right? Look at the performance of Palantir. Look at the user base and the growth of Solana, right? Look at obviously everything that's happening in Bitcoin. Look at NVIDIA, right? And you don't want to buy into parabolic rips, but it doesn't take a genius to avoid the shit that's in the long kiss of death, right? You don't have to destroy wealth. And I don't know. That's my soapbox. I'll shut up about that. But guys, I hope this is helpful. Again, a couple things just to mention. If you haven't joined our wealth building community, I'll link that up below. We're having a lot of fun in there. Reach out on X, Twitter, or whatever. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment below. Like this up, share it with a friend. And if you want to trade less, profit more, I've got some merch that I just created. I'll link that up below too. Just kind of something fun. And yeah, if you guys got value from this, again, please like it up, share it with somebody, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.